my name is Matthew Blackman. Today is April 18th, 2026, and this is my week 4 assignment for FTH 223. Alright, so I'm using my Glock 19X here as the example, so before anything starts, I'm going to clear the firearm real quick, locking back on an empty magazine. You can see the orange follower, magazine is empty, there's no live ammo in my workspace. Can both physically and visibly inspect the chamber. There's nothing in there. And then lock back. Firearm is clear. So for part 1, I'm going to explain the science behind compensators and list various pros and cons of how they might affect the average firearm operator. So a compensator is a device that goes on the end of a barrel or a firearm. For my visual example, I have my 19X with the Strike Industries mass driver on it, which is not actually attached to the barrel, but is attached to the recoil spring assembly. Its main job is to reduce muzzle rise, basically that upward kick you get when you fire. When a round goes off, you've got high pressure gas pushing the bullet forward, and then that gas shoots out right after it. Normally it just goes straight out the barrel, but a compensator redirects that gas usually upward through the ports on the top. Because of that, it pushes the barrel downward, so instead of the gun flipping up, it helps keep it flat. And the reason muzzle rise happens in the first place is because the recoil force sits above your grip, which causes the gun to rotate upward a bit. The compensator is basically working against that. So some pros for the compensator are obviously less muzzle rise. It allows you to get faster follow-up shots because of that, and better control, especially during rapid fire. And then some cons, it can make it louder, more concussion on the side. It cannot be great for people standing next to you or at an indoor range especially. It adds length to the firearm, especially in this case right here. One thing that a lot of comp setups struggle with is holster compatibility. This one's pretty easy. This one just fits in a standard open-end holster. But it definitely adds length to the firearm. So if you're actually using this firearm for a duty setup or a EDC, it can make it difficult. It can affect the reliability on some setups, especially with without proper ammo or knowing what ammo your gun likes. So overall, compensators help keep the gun flatter, easier to control, but they do come with some trade-offs depending on how you're using the firearm. I'll get back to you in just a minute with part 2. Okay, so real quick, to clear the firearm, there's no live ammo in my workspace. Mag is empty. Can both physically and visually see in the chamber. It is clear. Firearm is clear. Okay, so measuring the trigger pull before polish. In double action, we averaged out to 11.1. In single action, we averaged out to 4.3. So, trigger feel, the pull before polish feels okay. There's some grit, especially in double action. Not a lot of creep in single action, obviously. But when you're creeping in double action, there's grit. It could definitely feel smoother. There's parts where you can feel it kind of dragging or hanging up in places. So, I'm going to disassemble this firearm. And once I get it disassembled, I'm going to take the fire control group out. And I am going to show you them before I polish, and then after I polish and reassemble the firearm. Okay, quickly, before I reassemble the rest of the firearm, I have my fire control groups all assembled here. Just going to show some of the polishing. The only one I used the layout fluid for was the hammer, because there was no real wear marks on the assembly. So I ended up using some layout fluid and reassembling the firearm. I only had to put it back together twice in order to get enough marks to know where to really polish, but everything turned out pretty well. I'm going to reassemble the firearm right now, and I will be back to measure the trigger pulls after the polish. Okay, So I have the firearm back together, no magazine. It is clear. For my trigger pull weights after polish, double action average 10.6 and single action average 6.9. Trigger feel after polish. I think it feels a lot smoother. Single action is kind of hard to tell because the trigger is already pretty light on this firearm, but double action definitely feels less gritty, more fluid. So it definitely feels like we made an improvement. Obviously not much of improvement on the actual weights, but that's to be expected. As we know, polishing is more for trigger feel than it is for improving the actual weight or trigger pull. So next I'm going to re-disassemble the Sar B6, and I'm going to install the lighter spring kit. And when I get done with that, I will have the new trigger pull weights after that. And I'll be right back with y'all. Okay, so I'm back. I have replaced the trigger springs in the firearm real quick. No magazine in the firearm. You can both visibly and physically inspect the chamber. There is nothing inside. We are good to go. No live ammo in the workspace. After replacing the springs, have the old springs right here. Went ahead and took the trigger weight. So this is trigger weight after polish in spring kit. Double action, we averaged 8.5. In single action, 2.9. Honestly, this is obviously where it makes the biggest difference. I thought that the trigger is pretty good on this firearm to begin with. But it is especially crisp now. I think really, I don't think it could get any better. I don't feel any grit. I don't feel any slop. Double action in single action feels very nice. Double action is actually tolerable now. And yeah, I'm supposed to talk about how we accomplish these tasks without altering the geometry of the surfaces. And I mean, that's just simply being very, very careful with surfaces like the sear, and surfaces that if you wear down or take down too much, they can affect the functionality of the firearm. And frankly, I didn't polish. Wasn't really going for taking off material. As the lecture material said, I mirror finished like on the edges of the trigger just so that could be smooth as possible. But a lot of the components I didn't even go to where they were completely silver. I just took down the high spots. So that's how that was done. And I will be back for the next part, performing the drop safety test on the firearm. So we are back with the Sar B6. We're going to be doing our drop safety test now. So essentially, after the lecture material and everything, basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to take our little hammer here, and we are going to be hitting around the sear area, anywhere that could possibly get hit when it would get dropped, and making sure that all the tolerances are still good. Hammer doesn't drop, there would be no negligent destruction. All right, I am happy with that. Firearm still seems to be drop safe. I will be back with the last part just to go over the summary of this video. Okay, so now just real quick, I'm just going to be going over summary. Basically, you know, do I feel confident enough to do this for a customer's firearm right now? Would I do this work in the future? And to answer that, do I think I have enough experience to do this on a customer's gun right now? No, I don't. I think more practice is always better. You can always use more practice, even if you're the most experienced person. More practice is just always going to make you better, and I don't think I'm quite to the level yet where I'd be comfortable doing this to someone else's gun. Would I perform this work? Yes, I'd perform this work. I know that trigger modifications, especially modifications that can affect the sear or possibly make the firearm unsafe. You do take liability when you do those jobs, but I think as long as you have the experience and the know-how, I think you should be able to perform those jobs safely for your customer base. And that's going to be it. That's going to wrap up my week 4 assignment for FTH 223. Thank you.